problem is that Charles.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Metro Board activities for...
That's a wake-up call.
Try this mic. How about that? That's better. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Metro Board activities for June 13th, 2024. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I'll ask our Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, Teresa Empasado, to please provide this morning's safety contact. Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the event of an alarm activation, we'll exit this conference room via these glass doors, proceed into the lobby, and await further instructions from the security team. If we are instructed to exit the building, I'll lead the group to our designated assembly point, while the security team will coordinate with any first responders. There's an AED located at the entry desk, and in the event of an emergency, I'll retrieve the AED and render aid while we await emergency services. Lastly, restrooms are located in the vestibule area adjacent to this conference room. By being alert and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement or a WMATA employee, you can help keep yourself, Metro, and your fellow riders safe and secure. As you're going about your trip, if you see something that doesn't quite seem right, say something. A suspicious item or object should be reported as what and where it is. If you aren't sure of what an object is, describe its characteristics, size, color, and material. Describe why you believe it is suspicious and provide any other immediate details relevant to the object. Observed suspicious behavior needs to be avoided, then reported. Leave the area and report it as soon as you can. Always include the time and location. You may wish to write down what you saw to ensure details when describing the appearance and behavior of an individual. Call boxes on each rail car enable any rider to report an emergency to the operator. The train operator is in constant radio communication with central control. In station platforms, there are emergency call buttons located on designated pylons. On Metro buses, our bus operators are also in constant communication with the Metro Integrated Command and Communications Center. You can also send a text message to Metro Transit Police at MyMTPD. QR codes on Metro posters will allow you to text MTPD directly. If you see something, say something. We're all in this together. For additional information, please see the rider guide at WMATA.com. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you, Ms. Empasado. And I want to welcome everyone to the meeting of the board's executive committee. I'd also like to welcome alternate directors Spring Worth and Walter Alcorn, who are filling in for Dr. Lowe and Mr. Letourneau. Since this is our first public meeting of the day, I'll ask Ms. Ellison, the board corporate secretary, to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Smedberg.
Present.
Vice Chair McAndrew.
Present.
Alternate Director Worth.
Present.
Director Klein.
Present.
Alternate Director Alcorn.
Here.
Director Drummer.
Present.
Director Santos.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. We have today's agenda in front of us for approval. If there are no objections or comments on the agenda from the committee members, seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have several sets of minutes before us for approval. You see the list of them before you. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, or objections to any of those sets of minutes? Hearing and seeing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have two items on our agenda this morning. The first is to accept two reports from the Acting Inspector General and authorize its posting. And next, the committee will receive its first update on Metro's Gender Equity Framework, which is a component of Metro's Strategic Transformation Plan that was adopted by the board in February of 2023. Now I'll turn the floor over to our Acting Inspector General to begin, Mr. Mullendorf.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Today, I wanted to discuss the audit of the WMATA software licensing program that we conducted. We were looking into the way that WMATA manages the various software licenses that WMATA purchases. And while we found there are obvious ways that there are certain ways that the management can be improved, we came up with 5 recommendations. Management accepted all of them. I think we would be remiss if we didn't congratulate Judd Nicholson, the head of DM, for his work with us on this. It was a really collaborative process, and we really appreciated the responsiveness of WMATA staff. Management agreed with all of our recommendations and plans to take the necessary corrective actions, and we'll coordinate with management to make sure that gets done. The second report we were going to talk about, I think we passed on this morning because of timing, so I think we've just got the one for today.
Okay. Yep.
So that's it for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the acting inspector general? Any committee members, other board members? All right, under the board's bylaws, the executive committee is responsible for reviewing and accepting the reports from the inspector general. The committee has reviewed the following report, audit of WMATA's software licensing management. Before we take a vote, any other final comments or updates? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mullendorf. And then we'll move right on to here. Acceptance of these reports constitutes the board's authorization to post them on the Inspector General's website, provided that the IG has conferred with the General Counsel and confirmed that any private or confidential information has been removed and or redacted in accordance with applicable law and WMATA policy. I would like to move approval of this item. Is there a second from a committee member?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Klein. Any final comments or questions? Ms. Ellison, please call the vote.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Ms. Ward?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. This report has been accepted and the Inspector General has been authorized to post it online. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mullendorf. Yeah, I guess, well, I see. Kevin, before you leave, I thought we were going to do something a little later, but because I know you're leaving now, but, on behalf of the board, and I know others may want to say something, really, really appreciate the time that you've been with us here. Your leadership and your thoughtfulness has really shown, and, we can't say enough, and really engagement with the staff here at WMATA and your own, and, the IG staff has really been great. And so really want to thank you. And the clarity in which you communicated with us too is very much appreciated. So,
well, thank you very much. And you look, the support the board provided from day one, and the sort of go get 'em attitude that you sort of let me have was amazing. I really appreciated it, and the staff, Randy's staff, and Patty's staff has been just tremendous in helping us kind of get the office moving, again where we want it to go. And I think I'm really excited about who you've hired to as my successor. I think she's going to be tremendous. So, but thank you for the opportunity. It was a great experience. And
and your experience and your thoughtfulness again, and your leadership at a time where we're dealing with some pretty serious issues was extremely helpful. Anyone else? Joe?
I'll just say, echo what the chair said, but say it's incredibly appreciative to the region that you stepped out of your day job to come and do this, and do it not just for a week or two, but many months. And I think appreciate your firm letting you do that, your family letting you do that. But at the end of the day, it's been really rewarding for us as a board, but also I think for WMATA, and at the end of the day for the region as well. So thank you.
So Kevin, let me tell you, I've been a student of leadership for many decades. And to see you come in with your background, your skill sets, but your leadership, your principal leadership is really what got my attention over this time frame. You came in with professionalism, with poise, and with tremendous skill. So thank you for your enduring impact on this organization and on this team.
thank you very much.
Agreed.
Well, thank you. So Kevin, just on behalf of the whole staff, quite frankly, there's no one that's going to benefit more from an independent, high-functioning OIG than myself, obviously. Knowing risks early is how we can prevent issues, mitigate them, and continue to build, continuous improvement, better culture, better organization. So I just appreciate, your transparency, your collaboration, and just your proactiveness, and kind of letting us know when you see something, and just we can all work together. So just been very professional, and you got a great team there, and we look forward to continue working with them. And I think we made considerable amount of progress here in the last little bit, and hopefully I'm looking forward to a new IG starting next week, and we'll just kind of keep that going. So really appreciate all your work.
Oh, thank you. And you're right. The team that the management team and the staff at OIG really are tremendous and have done great work. And I'm sure Michelle's going to drive them forward and to do great things. So, but thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and board. My name is Meera Patel. I manage Metro's gender equity framework, and I'm an analyst on the global benchmarking team. I'm joined today to my right by Darlene Slaughter, who is our Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer and the senior leadership sponsor for this project. To my left, I'm joined by Andrea Burnside, Vice President of Performance Data and Research, who is kindly standing in for Kimmy Feldbauer, Metro's Chief of Staff and Executive Sponsor for the Gender Equity Framework. So the framework that we're introducing to you today is a way for Metro to ensure that we elevate and address gender equity in our decision-making processes. The Strategic Transformation Plan outlines how critical it is that our agency commits to institutionalizing equity and how the services that we deliver can unintentionally create or reinforce regional inequities as well. So today our focus is service excellence, specifically in line with the new initiative that we're calling multi-use spaces on Metrobus. But we also note that the gender equity framework advances many strategic transformation plan objectives across talented teams and regional opportunity and partnership. So across access, bus, and rail, women take a majority of trips and are a core ridership base. There's a vast amount of industry research on peers globally that suggests similar trends. This research also finds that women travel differently than men and have differing needs and perspectives when it comes to using public transportation. A few example findings are that women are more likely to travel during off-peak times, travel shorter distances to a variety of locations or trip chain, and feel unsafe, particularly when traveling to or waiting for transit. Women are also more likely to either live in car-free households or not have primary access to cars, which leads to a dependence on transit to travel. It's important for us to note that any types of future service cuts and infrequency will obviously impact all of our customers, but they will result in longer travel times and extended transfer times, particularly for women, because they're more likely to transfer and trip chain. Along the same vein, fare increases will have a more disproportionate impact on women since they have lower incomes on average, even though all of our customers, including men, would be impacted. These are just some of the perspectives that have historically been missing in the design of transportation systems around the world, which emphasizes how crucial it is to highlight and consider these gender differences in travel as it relates to our own business practices and procedures. And I also want to note that there are people who ride our system that identify as gender expansive or outside of traditional gender roles. From what we can measure through our customer surveys, they take approximately 1% to 2% of the trips across all modes compared to women and men. And given that these gender expansive folks are also more likely to maybe feel unsafe or be targets of harassment in public spaces, their perspectives will be considered as part of this effort. And we're thinking through how we can collect better data that represents more gender identities. So in 2019, Los Angeles Metro released a landmark gender equity study called Understanding How Women Travel, followed by a subsequent gender action plan, which categorized their insights across 4 major themes that you can see on the left side of the slide. They were the first U.S. public transit agency to conduct a large-scale research project on women's transit needs and make a commitment to view their policy planning and design efforts through a gender lens. While their study and action plan focus on gendered travel patterns specifically in LA, we can take a look at some of these themes and figure out how we can elevate gender diverse perspectives on our own system and integrate them into decision-making to further our own strategic transformation plan goals. We can do this by improving visibility for research and best practices, similar to what we're doing today. We have a very robust benchmarking practice and are constantly in touch with our peers to share and receive ideas and insights, and it's a large part of this framework, as you'll see throughout the presentation. We also can ensure that we disaggregate key metrics that we use to evaluate ourselves by gender, collaborate with internal and external diverse stakeholders, all while we advance equitable initiatives, a few of which are outlined on the next slide. We already are doing a lot of work that is in line with what LA Metro is proposing will be beneficial to women as part of their gender action plan, as you can see from the items that have the asterisks next to them. We also included some additional example initiatives that build on best practices and further address gendered travel perspectives as well. As mentioned, women and gender expansive people are more likely to be targets of harassment or report feeling unsafe while taking transit. We've made humongous strides in the last year when it comes to bolstering our safety initiatives. We've made a large investment in increasing the number of eyes and ears in our system, such as security personnel, transit ambassadors, and our crisis intervention specialists. We've also made capital investments into camera visibility and station lighting and updated our Metrobus operating procedures to allow courtesy stops between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. so customers can be dropped off closer to their final destinations. As I'll describe in detail later in the presentation, women are more likely to rely on public transit for caregiving activities, and it's important that our station stop and vehicle design reflects all types of travel purposes. In addition to launching an open stroller policy on Metrobus last year, we are working to bring further enhancements to the customer experience with multi-use spaces for strollers, carts, and large items. Based on the information we have available, we estimate that approximately 62% of people enrolled in our low-income fare program are women. And part of LA Metro's Gender Action Plan involves looking to leverage partnerships with institutions by connecting with healthcare providers in order to promote their own low-income coupon program, which is something that we can benchmark and investigate in terms of additional outreach for our program so we can get more women and gender expansive people enrolled. Additionally, the research suggests that women are more likely to make transfers during their transit journeys, as I mentioned, so our free and reduced fare transfer policy that we've had in place is particularly beneficial in terms of gender equity. And lastly, on service frequency and reliability, we've recently made select bus routes in DC run 24/7, which is a win for shift workers who are predominantly women. I mentioned that women are more likely to travel during off-peak times. We've also been able to increase our service during the off-peak as well. So it's apparent that when we make improvements that address the specific needs of women and gender expansive people, we make our transit system better for all of our customers as well. And it's important that we continue to evaluate the effectiveness of these initiatives by gender, as well as consider the gendered implications in any new initiatives. Which, speaking of new initiatives, there's one that we're testing that we're excited to share with you today on Metrobus multi-use spaces. So this initiative stems from the gender equity concept called mobility of care, which refers to all travel resulting from home and caring responsibilities for children, seniors, and people with disabilities. These trips could be related to accompanying others to a destination, such as daycares, nursing homes, or medical appointments, or doing tasks on behalf of others, such as grocery shopping. This concept was originally socialized by Dr. Inés Sánchez de Madariaga in Madrid, which is widely known as a world-class transit system. And previously, these types of trip purposes were grouped together with leisure travel when collecting customer information, which kind of buried some very important insights and implications that are specific to how caretakers use public transportation. Many agencies around the world, including us, are now recognizing caretaker travel as its own distinct trip purpose category when looking at data from our customer outreach. And even as we see men increasing participation in caretaking activities, these types of daily tasks continue to be mostly performed by women, as 68% of women are the primary shoppers in their household. Additionally, as ridership continues to increase on Metrobus, we're thinking through ways to improve passenger flow and capacity. When we looked at the numbers, we realized we had the highest number of seats on our buses when compared to global peers, and that makes it challenging for those bringing strollers or large items on board to find space. So in response to feedback that we've received from riders with disabilities and caretakers who rely on the bus to travel, we've created a multi-use space by removing a pair of non-ADA seats on each bus that we are retrofitting. Before introducing multi-use spaces, it's most feasible and in line with our policy for open strollers to occupy ADA spaces if people with disabilities and seniors are not there. But as you can see from the demo pictures on the left with my colleague and myself, strollers take up half of the ADA seating and may block aisles, creating congestion and posing safety risks. And while strollers get first priority in the multi-use space, the space can also be used for customers traveling with carts, luggage, large items, or additional standing capacity. Our fleet team has also added some extra hand loops for standing customers that need to use this space for safety as well. The multi-use space provides a customer experience that reflects the availability of a dedicated space for strollers and large items on our 8000 series rail cars. And any seats removed as part of this initiative will be used to replace future seats that are damaged in order to save us cost and administrative time as well. So creating priority space for caretakers is not necessarily a new concept. New York MTA is currently undergoing their own pilot program to create designated stroller spaces on their buses by, similar to us, removing a pair of seats, or they're retrofitting their flip-up seats depending on bus layouts. So we've been collaborating with their team to share ideas and insights while we embark on a similar testing process with similar goals as well. Their initial pilot launched in October 2022 and expanded after 6 months of testing. And they were able to solicit feedback from a variety of stakeholders, including bus operators and riders during the design process. So their pilot program has gotten a lot of positive feedback from MTA's customers, and their team is continuously identifying safety concerns and areas to improve as they expand this program to more buses in their fleet. So we are working very closely with our fleet and transportation teams on the implementation strategy to ensure that we're being thoughtful about any changes that we are making to bus seat layout, and we're able to overcome any challenges during the initial 6-month testing phase of this project that started in May and will run until November with 20 retrofitted buses. To date, we have briefed this initiative to Metro's key external stakeholder groups and received a lot of excitement and positive feedback. We've also obtained feedback from about 80 bus operators and mechanics at multiple divisions, many of them mentioning that this would enhance the customer experience and improve passenger flow since they see many customers traveling with strollers, carts, and bags. Our operators and mechanics also gave us some feedback for improvement that we've incorporated. We received a suggestion that there should be a decal on the outside of the bus indicating that a stroller priority space will be available on the inside, which we are implementing on each retrofitted bus, as you can see on the right side of the slide. They also mentioned that it would be useful for customers to have a clear understanding of who gets priority in this multi-use space, which we're laying out in the window decal that you can see on the right as well. So the idea is that open strollers get first priority, followed by people traveling with carts, luggage, and large items. And if they're not present, then standing customers can occupy that space. The 20 retrofitted buses are running on priority routes that we've identified based on mobility of care research done in tandem with MIT's Transit Lab. But we're also looking to ensure that throughout the 6-month testing period, the buses run on a variety of routes throughout the system to evaluate where these spaces are most effective. We are collecting feedback from both customers and operators as well throughout this initial test period. So when customers board the bus and use the multi-use space, they'll see a QR code next to the window decal that they can use to access a very short survey that will let us know how they are using the space, how effective it is for their needs, which bus and route that they're on, and any other feedback for improvements that they'd like to provide. And just generally, this is a very powerful example of how there are ways to creatively advance equitable solutions that create a positive experience on transit for all trip purposes. And we're excited to keep you all and our external stakeholder groups informed on how things go during testing. This briefing is just an introduction to the gender equity work that we're getting off the ground, but as you can probably tell, there's a lot of ground to cover. Metro is an industry leader in many aspects, and investing in equity work takes us to the next level. We have the potential to be a world-class leader in the gender equity space, and that comes from staying tuned in and connected to our peers, learning from their best practices and retrofitting them to make it work for our system and our region, similar to what we're doing with the multi-use spaces. Another aspect of this is ensuring that we're collaborating across different business areas internally on gender equity and making space for perspectives of our system's eyes and ears, which are our frontline staff. Gender equity initiatives can be innovated in collaboration with diverse communities through extensive outreach, but can also come from simply applying the perspectives that I've mentioned throughout this presentation to any initiatives that we're already driving as part of the strategic transformation plan. The scope of what we can do is very expansive. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone in this room that Metro needs a long-term funding solution. And one of the many reasons that it's crucial is to ensure that we're fully able to institutionalize gender equity here. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Patel. Any questions or comments from committee members first to Ms. Patel and the team? Mr. McAndrew.
I'll just say this is great, and as a father of a 2.5-year-old that loves riding the bus, I too enjoy what you're doing here. Just one flag, and I sent this to the executive team this week. You know, opportunities when we do shutdowns and communications and messaging to folks about changes due to challenges that we have from the vehicles that we're using. For example, the red line shutdown at the current moment, those with strollers can't ultimately access the current buses or all buses. We do have some WMATA buses that are in service. I think messaging and communicating to the public about the change, understanding and appreciating that we need some grace and space during these times. But I think messaging is important because I think it caught a few folks by surprise. And we've been doing shutdowns now for a couple of years. And I think we'll always catch people by surprise, but I think proactively communicating that is important too.
Chair, I just want to maybe a fine point to that, just so on the record. So all of our vehicles are ADA accessible, and we will accommodate people with strollers. We can't accommodate people with strollers on the top floor of the bus. So that nuance just has to be important. So if someone in the red line has a stroller, we'll fold the stroller, we'll put it in the compartment, they can get the stroller at their destination. If someone has a wheelchair, we'll accommodate them. Plus we have extra vehicles out there as well. So I know you know that. I just want to put for the larger audience that if you have a stroller or an ADA device, all of our vehicles will accommodate you.
Incentives.
Thank you for a very interesting, very refreshing presentation. I think for the next time when we hear back from you, just again for future question that I'm interested in is, are you all able to quantify both the direct and indirect benefits of these initiatives? So I think there's probably common agreement these are a good thing, again, as a parent who's struggled with strollers, and also, family members with canes and other needing special accommodation. It would be helpful to contextualize this in terms of quantifiable, whether it's savings or increased ridership or whatever the appropriate categories that you all would recommend. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Klein.
Yes, thank you. This was a great presentation. I had a number of questions written down, and as you went through, you actually answered all but one of them. So great presentation.
Thank you.
My last question is it within your part of your work to also look at gender equity issues with regard to our own workforce and our own kind of internal practices, employment practices, or is that it's a different department?
So, starting this, we started to focus on customers, but, it didn't feel like true to the project unless we also like considered our own workforce as well, like particularly our frontline staff. So this is something Darlene and I have been talking about a lot, and she can comment more on some of the exciting things that we're doing as well.
Yeah. So, thank you. That's it. Thank you for that. So one of the things that we're actually working on now is starting an employee resource group that will be neurodiverse talent within the organization, also accessibility and caregiving. So with that, with the start of that, we're going to bring that on board in October during Disability Awareness Month. We're hoping to get a lot of employees who will give us input and insight to help them as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Speaking of direct and indirect benefit, Mira, what the 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. The courtesy bus stops? Do we have any data on that, and how are people taking advantage of that? How are people consider? Has it been successful thus far?
That's something that we are trying to look into and quantify as well. So we're happy to follow up.
Okay. Ms. Ward.
Thanks for a great presentation. I learned quite a bit about this as a frequent bus user. I've definitely experienced the congestion in the aisles with the strollers, and I was on the bus maybe about a month ago, and I noticed the multi-use spaces, and that was really exciting to see that. And I just have one question. You mentioned about the decal that you're going to put up to show for the strollers and the space. Is there a decal, and it might already be there, I just didn't notice, that says that the spaces are for ADA priority over strollers on the buses, so that folks know, like riders know, that if somebody has, somebody with a disability or, wheelchair or device, they get priority at the seats up front versus somebody with a stroller?
So that's something that, should be taken care of with the decals that are already there that say the spaces should be available for people with disabilities. But I think clarifying that message is an important part of the strategy to communicate around multi-use spaces as well. So, and with any new initiative, there's a cultural change around it too that needs to happen. So, the more we can inform people that if you have a stroller, you can use these multi-use spaces if they're on the bus already, the better.
Yeah, I've just noticed some conflict between the spaces, so that's why I ask about if there's some sign that we could put there so folks know that if somebody comes on the bus, you need to move.
Yeah, the only comment I'll add in there. So there is a decal already in there, like federal law, that these spaces are for someone with a disability. So that is like a standard thing across the whole industry. So Sarah's not here today, but Sarah, in our whole wayfinding, signage, kind of overall program, is looking through all this right now. We have some places where we don't have enough information. We have other places where we have too much conflicting information. We want to think about how we use our digital assets and decals and how they work together, operator information. So that all of that stuff is kind of looked at for the kind of overall customer experience. But so there is something there now. But again, sometimes we have stickers that are this big and sometimes they should be bigger. But if they're bigger, what does that mean for other stickers? So that there's a big initiative on that going right now. So Sarah just doesn't happen to be here, but she's leading that effort.
Mr. Alcorn.
Thank you. Great presentation. I want to encourage, especially on the outreach, something I know Randy's talked about before. It's important that our system not just be safe, but actually feel safe as well for our riders. So certainly on the outreach, keeping that in mind and emphasizing that, I think will really reap dividends in many different ways. But excellent approach and presentation. Thank you for helping us be the leader.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Drummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you go to slide number 6, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
So first, I'd just like to point out that this presentation really refined my understanding and my lens in DEI, which is a very complex topic, but it really helped me today. It helped me understand that there's a possible drill down in safety and security that I hadn't considered in almost 3 years of being the chair of the Safety and Operations Committee. So I just want to say thank you for that, because it opened my eyes to some things that I hadn't considered previously. And particularly the disaggregation of key metrics by gender. Just hadn't thought of that in the past. I erroneously thought that good customer service meant good consideration of DEI. Not the case. If we drill down a little further, we can see that that might not be the case. And of course, it was pretty eye-opening to see that women, in this case, women, although slight, are the majority of the riders on bus and rail, and really a significant number ahead of others in Metro Access. So I just want to say thank you for that enlightening way of presenting this information, and as the others said, a great presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty.
Okay. And Don, thank you for raising that, Amira. Joe and I had a preview of this, as we do, before the slide set goes out. And that struck me as well, and it made me think back on an incident that I had, or not me personally, but someone came up to me in Mount Vernon Square. I was coming back from an event. It was like 10:20 at night, and she came up to me. She goes, "You're on the Metro board, right? I think I've seen you." Yes, and she thanked me for us for the ambassadors and the people who were there, and how thankful she was to have that, because she is the exact description that you described today of a younger woman who, has to walk home usually late at night because of her job. She works at a law firm. She's worked late night. And ever since then, she just felt really a little safer and felt more comfortable riding Metro because of that step. So, Don, thank you for raising that.
Yeah, thank you
and
so much.
highlighting it. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Any other questions, comments? Yeah. Thanks. All right. With no further business to come before the committee, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you for joining us. And now I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Klein to begin our Finance and Capital Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smedberg. I think it is still morning, right? No, it's only 11. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Finance and Capital Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah Klein. I'm the vice chair of the committee and will be chairing today in Mr. Letourneau's absence. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our May 9th meeting. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have one item on today's agenda, and it's a straightforward one. We're being asked to approve a bond issuance that will leverage Metro's dedicated funding to support our capital program. I'll turn the floor over to Metro's CFO, Yetunde Olamide, and Treasurer Robert Haas.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Pardon my voice this morning. I have some allergies. I'm not angry. So I'm Yetunde Olumide, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm joined by Robert Haas, our Treasurer and Vice President. This morning, we will present the terms and request authorization for the issuance of the second lien 2024A series bonds with the approval of the 2024A supplemental second lien bond resolution. The second lien dedicated funding bonds support Metro's authorities' strategic goals by managing resources responsibly while leveraging revenues to provide a fund source to the capital improvement plan to drive safe and reliable service. Through the bond program, annual dedicated funding from Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia in the amount of $500 million, of which $470 million is bondable, have been leveraged to fund the capital program. Reduction of the need for the amount of FY25 debt is primarily due to the delay or underspend of 3 programs in FY24. The planned funding for the programs will carry over and now be available in FY25, thus reducing the need and the amount of the debt issuance in FY25. The first program is the heavy rail overhaul facility, which has been delayed while WMATA explores alternative approaches to design. The second program is the bus procurement program, including electric buses, which has been delayed while Metro is making a contract award decision. And this should occur before the end of FY24. The last program involves a total amount needed to fund the transfer of preventive maintenance expenses from the operating budget, which was lower than expected in FY24. Other operating budget favorability is mainly due to vacancy rate of about 9.2%, paratransit trip volume versus budget, attributed also to a shift in less expensive carriers of approximately 700,000 trips and lower fuel utilization. The FY24 capital improvement plan is funded at $2.6 billion as approved by the Board of Directors in April. Due to aforementioned favorability and carryover, $300 million of the FY24 budgeted federal funds are now available to be invested in FY25, and subsequently Metro only requires a $663 million bond issuance as opposed to the originally budgeted $963 million. This reduction in bond issuance saves Metro approximately $152 million in interest or cost of borrowing over a 35-year time period. Mr. Haas.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. The terms of the bond include some built-in flexibility to respond to investor demand and interest, particularly the coupon rate at 6%, not to exceed. Overall, a negotiated sale provides a guarantee that WMATA will receive the principal amount necessary to fund the portion of the FY25 capital budget that is funded by debt. This slide here shows the timetable and the timetable illustrates the various activities which support the Series 2024A second lien bond issuance. And with today's authorization and the receipt of credit ratings, which are expected on or about June 21st, staff will move the board for approval and the POS release at the end of June. Investor and pricing conversations are expected in mid-July and final closing in mid to late July. And with that, staff recommends the approval to authorize the issuance of the second lien 2024A series bonds and the approval of the 2024A supplemental second lien bond resolution.
And Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions the board may ask at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that straightforward presentation. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee first? Okay, other board members?
Just a quick
Mr.
question.
Chairman?
Thank you. Yatunde or Robert, I'm curious, in the thing it says the compact requires board approval of the following bond terms and conditions prior to issuance. And those are the proposed bond terms. Those are not necessarily specified within the like a limit or something specified within the compact itself. It just requires the board to approve the proposed issuance.
Correct, the
Yeah.
limits within
Okay.
which we may issue.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I would like to call for a vote. I move approval. Can I get a second by a member of the committee? Seconded by Mr. Alcorn. Any further discussion? Ms. Ellison, could you please call the vote?
Mr. Alcorn? Vice Chair Klein?
Aye.
Mr. McAndrew?
Aye.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion, I'm sorry, Ms. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and I will turn the floor over to Mr. Drummer to begin today's Safety and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Good morning. Oh, is it morning? It's still morning?
It is still morning.
Okay, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Safety and Operations Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. Are there any objections by members of the committee? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Transitioning to approval of the minutes of our May 9th meeting. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are also approved. So this morning we have two updates on today's agenda. The first presentation is a review of Metro's 5-year trending in safety performance for rail, bus, and Metro Access, benchmarked against our peer agencies and complemented by ongoing initiatives to drive outcomes. The second presentation also includes status updates on our rail car maintenance audit, train operator certification, and rail automation. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Impastato to begin our discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an annual presentation, which lays out how Metro Rail, Metro Bus, and Metro Access are performing compared with transit agencies of a similar size and type from across the United States, as well as the proactive safety initiatives that are being delivered by the operations team to manage the most important safety risks for our customers. The safe performance of operations is central to Metro's mission and strategic transformation plan. This presentation aligns with our service excellence pillar, delivering regular, efficient service that meets or surpasses our customers' need. Of emphasis, safety is more than a strategic objective for Metro, it's a core value. We only ever deliver safe service, and it's paramount and intrinsic to everything which we do. Metro has assessed our safety performance by looking at 8 comparable agencies chosen due to their analogous operating environments and service modes. The safety performance of each mode is depicted as a trend over the past 5 years, utilizing data from the National Transit Database, inclusive of information up through December of 2023. To ensure alignment with the Federal Transit Administration's reporting delays and to facilitate effective interagency comparisons, the data that you're about to see are presented on a calendar year basis. The normalization of metrics across modes is performed by calculating the number of incidents per 10 million vehicle revenue miles, as recommended by the FTA and implemented in our agency safety plan metrics. We employ these safety performance benchmarking efforts not only for evaluating our achievements, but also as input in our safety management system for target setting processes in the subsequent year. To provide a brief overview of the graphs that you see depicted, the light blue shade is the industry average of the 8 comparable agencies over the course of the past 5 years. The dark blue line represents Metro's performance. Beginning a review of our benchmarking, we'll look at Metro Bus performance. With regard to bike and pedestrian collisions and injuries, Metro has performed better than the industry average. While incidents have increased slightly from 2022 to 2023, Metro is down over 30% from 2019. Nearly half of these incidents involve pedestrians attempting to board a moving bus. And beyond that, Metro has seen an increase in scooter and cyclist-involved incidents, which comports with a significant increase in both the use of scooters and bicycles in the DC urban environment since the pandemic recovery has occurred. With regard to collisions, the second chart in the upper right quartile, Metro has improved significantly from performing amongst the worst performers in 2019. Metro has decreased collision rates by over 56%. We're now performing better than average amongst all of our peers. 40% of Metro's collisions occur while a bus is stopped and or struck in the rear of the bus. Some of our more severe incidents have involved intersection collisions, primarily dealing with left turns when motorists strike the bus, which makes up approximately 20% of those collisions. With regard to customer injuries, the lower left quartile, there's been a 27% decrease from 2019 to 2023. Of note, 45% of our customer injuries on bus are related to collisions, and 40% are related to slips, trips, and falls while the bus is in motion. These onboard injuries are usually related to passenger inattention or injuries caused by unexpected movement. For example, a bus operator utilizing hard braking to avoid a potential collision. And finally, in the lower right quartile, there has been a 9% decrease with regard to bus employee injuries from 2019. The majority of those injuries are caused in collisions. Having reviewed the Metro bus performance benchmarked against other comparable bus transit agencies, I'd like to now review what safety initiatives we're proactively putting in place to keep trending in the right direction. As part of our safety management system, BUS now has progressed to including embedded safety risk coordinators in place across the operation. These are staff in bus transportation and maintenance who identify and prioritize and work to manage safety hazards. This represents a significant maturation in the implementation of our SMS and our safety risk management system in place to support the proactive identification of hazards. Safety risk coordinators have the ability to escalate hazards of concern to the Executive Safety Council for review and mitigation. They work with their management team and colleagues in the safety department to proactively perform communications campaigns and to help operators enhance their appropriate bus handling skills. In response to FTA's latest additions to their requirements of agencies in the agency safety plan, Metro is now formalizing and expanding the existing risk reduction programs that we have in place to comport and align with those requirements. Additionally, our engineering team has worked closely with colleagues in operations and safety, looking at industry best practice to proactively design out safety concerns. Engineers are piloting a retrofit to further encapsulate bus operators in the operating compartment with a fully enclosed shield. And lastly, the bus team is leading a very significant cultural change. Proactive and reactive use of our drive cams is standard in terms of using it as a tool to coach and learn lessons from our bus operators. We're now really expanding the use of the onboard cameras to enhance situational awareness through ongoing responsiveness with the Metro Integrated Command and Communications Center. There's a growing emphasis on coaching between both operators and their supervision, as well as cohorts of operators, really ensuring both a vertical and horizontal integration of safety messages. Lastly, materials from the dash cams are now being proactively reviewed for inclusion in Metro's training programs. And as we've discussed with the board, we are adopting the use of simulation. I was out at our Common Turner facility yesterday. We have 4 installed bus simulators, and we're using scenarios that we have encountered in the operations of our buses to further enhance the skills of our bus operators, both in their initial training as well as in ongoing and recurrent training. Shifting to focus on how Metro Rail performs when compared to similar transit agencies. Again, the graphs depict the 5-year average of our 8 industry peers in the lighter blue, with Metro's performance highlighted in the dark blue trend line. With regard to fire events, Metro reports fire events to the National Transit Database based upon 2 criteria, both major and minor. The group averages represent the accumulated consolidated average for both. The difference between a major and a minor event is a reporting threshold. For major events, those are evacuations of facilities or equipment, or injuries sustained by customers or occupants requiring transport from the scene. In 2022, Metro did experience insulator fires that resulted in evacuation. Hence, you'll see the spike in reporting there. In 2023, however, there's a distinctive difference. Many of the fires that Metro has experienced in 2023 have been minor events per the NTD criteria with far less impact to customers and operations. These are events such as incipient trash can fires or improper disposal of lit objects by station occupants, such as disposing of a cigarette in a trash can. So Metro's performance charts amongst the best in the industry with regard to fire events. In the upper right quartile with regard to derailments, Metro has performed among the best in the industry. There was marginal increase from 2019 through 2023. The majority of that increase is attributed to derailments of work equipment within work zones, not impacting passenger service. In the lower left quartile, with regard to customer injuries, Metro's had a 44% decrease in our rail customer injuries, and we continue to outperform our peers. Nearly 50% of our customer injuries occur in stations where customers are ascending or descending our vertical transportation, such as escalators or stairways. The next highest category of incidents are customers falling on our platforms. We conducted a detailed analysis of these incidents, and the overwhelming majority are a result of customer inattention, distraction, or impairment. Finally, in the lower right quartile, with regard to employee injuries, Metro has followed the overall industry trend, which has shown an increase over the last 5 years of employee injuries. About 1/3 of incidents are slips, trips, and falls that are involving moving equipment. Metro has several programs in place to reduce employee injuries. Pivoting to discuss the rail safety initiatives in order to continue to perform well and drive down safety events. Similar to Metro Bus, rail operations, maintenance, and infrastructure teams have formally introduced the safety risk coordinators. This is a key implementation milestone in the progress and maturation of our safety risk management efforts in accordance with the 3-year roadmap that we've developed for SMS implementation. Safety risk coordinators have a purposeful and integrated approach to improve safety data and inform rail management of the most appropriate safety campaigns to prevent or mitigate the potential for safety incidents. Central to the success of both rail and bus safe operations is the Metro Integrated Command and Communications Center, launched in October of 2023. We've already experienced significant benefits in terms of centralized coordination and improved decision-making, and these benefits are sure to grow as these functions mature over the coming months. We've also had a marked increase in the scale and quality of customer engagement, increasing our customers' awareness and confidence in the safety of our system. We've had extensive marketing campaigns covering topics such as Metro ambassadors, our enhanced police patrols, our new fare gates, and as well as the use of crisis intervention specialists active across the network. Our efforts continue working closely with our colleagues in customer experience to improve messaging in stations and ensure ongoing accessibility of the messaging to tackle a range of safety-related issues such as escalator falls or wayfinding concerns in stations at L'Enfant. Additionally, we're working to continue the integrated approach towards implementing our SMS by really engaging with several stakeholders. We've reached out to our customers and are continuing to solicit their feedback, as well as working very closely with frontline employees and union representatives to proactively identify concerns and incidents before they manifest in exposure to risk. We've really been innovating driving safety forward on our rail system, and we're proud to lead the industry in many respects. Proactively learning these lessons and responding to unique situations that we engage with and occur throughout the metro system is really a point of pride for the staff in safety and readiness and our colleagues in operations. We're continuing to move the needle and make Metro Rail the safest it can be. Finally, looking at how Metro Access compares to our peers, there are a couple differences in the data sets that I'd like to highlight. Due to differences in how paratransit operators submit data to the National Transit Database, Metro only considers 3 peer agencies: the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, and the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. Are the peers against which we're benchmarking. They're represented again in the light blue shading, with Metro's performance in the trend line. With regard to collisions, while Metro has seen an increase in the number of collisions since 2019, we have 44% less collisions in 2023 than our 5-year high in 2022. We have reversed the overall industry trend. You'll see the sharp turn downward in terms of Metro's number of collisions, and we're very proud to continue to focus our attention on improving versus the industry. With regard to customer injuries, we've had a 33% decrease in customer injuries since 2019. Again, Metro is proud to lead the industry. 65% of these injuries are collision related across the Metro Access system. Again, similar causes for collisions include being struck while standing, so struck in the side or struck in the rear of standing Metro Access vehicles. With regard to safety initiatives, to keep safety at the forefront of Metro Access service excellence, being a contractor-delivered service, the Metro leadership team has been working very closely with all of the contractors to mature the use of available safety data. We're looking at developing leading indicators, which are precursor data that can allow us to take action before an event occurs. Safety campaigns are being driven by the available data, and we are enhancing training and looking at utilizing our Metro Access services as an area for innovation. We are continuing the use of a cognitive computer-based gaming system to test driver alertness. Really, this is the future of evaluating fitness for duty and alertness of operators. Our operators will come into duty and they will engage with a cognitive gaming platform that will test and evaluate their alertness. This is supplemental to the ongoing formalized fitness for duty procedures and testing which remain in place. We also have advanced driver attention warning systems that we've retrofitted many of our Metro Access vehicles with, and we're evaluating any precursor data with regard to abnormal or potentially analogous activities by operators, and proactively supporting our contractors in intervening in oversight with regard to Metro Access. And lastly, we've partnered with the Metro Access contractors to promote a Locked Into Safety campaign, focusing on effective securement for individuals in our Metro Access vehicles that are utilizing mobility devices, as well as ensuring a safety mindset in all that we execute throughout Metro Access. This concludes our presentation of Metro's benchmarking and a review of the safety initiatives across all 3 modes. My colleague, Mr. Dwyer, and I are happy to answer any of the board's questions relative to our activities.
Teresa, thank you so much for another excellent presentation. First, I'd like to say kudos to you on the tremendous progress of our safety programs across Metro. And I know it's a team effort, a lot of hard work, specifically the cultural transformation at multiple levels in our organization. And then secondly, the measurable outcomes. It's easy to talk about things and to put it on paper. It's something different to see results. And we've seen that, and we're seeing that. And we've seen it over a 5-year period. So thank you very much, and the entire team for that. Also, it's not accidental. SMS is a complex process. Our implementation is kind of That's industry standard in implementation. And I want to thank you for the progress we're making. It's not a done deal. It's always evolving. We're a learning organization, and we know that it's a cycle. Once we get something done, we come back through and we make up those gaps that we find in the midst of it. And then the industry-leading initiatives that we have across the board. We take advantage of what we've seen that works well in other places, and then we have some of our own that become the industry standard. So thank you for that as well. And as I always say, I want to encourage the senior executive team members and Randy to ensure that this progress is communicated at every level of our organization. I always told leaders in any organization that I led, I can't get cultural transformation to the front line unless I can get it through the leadership at multiple levels to the front line. So please ensure that they get this. And I know we have mechanisms to make that happen, but please get that word to them, because I'm going to ask them when I see a bus operator or a train operator or a station manager, I'm going to ask them, have they received this information? Do they know what's going on as I move around the system? So I wanted to thank you for that. And at this time, I'll ask committee members if they have any comments or questions. Ms. Martin Proctor.
Hi, good afternoon, team. Yes, thank you once again for such an amazing presentation and for all the work that you're doing, specifically around safety and operations within our system. I just had a couple things that I wanted to highlight and just get some clarification on. I know in the beginning we talked about that we're above average. We're definitely looking at the median numbers, correct? And
Yes, we're looking at the mathematical mean of industry performance.
absolutely, thank you. I just want everybody to understand that it's not the social connotation. We are always striving for excellence. We're just specifically looking at the numbers and where they actually fall in that trajectory. The second clarification I wanted to talk about is you say safety risk coordinators. Can we drill down a little bit on what that is and how you become one? Is there a specific certification? I would just like to know a little bit more.
Absolutely. So the safety risk coordinators are going to be a key determinant of the successful long-term sustainable implementation of Metro's SMS. One of the shortfalls of a traditional safety risk management approach is that it's been primarily insular to safety professionals. And there's been a gap in terms of driving down to the individuals that are exposed to the risks and hazards. What we've sought to do, looking at successful SMS implementation across a broad swath of high-performance organizations that operate in high-risk environments, organizations such as the nuclear industry, the pipeline industry, the mining industry, areas where employees and the public are exposed to potential high-risk, high-consequence environments. The real key determinant to the long-term success and sustainability of their SMS implementation has been engagement with the front line, engagement with employees that are directly executing the processes that protect themselves and their customers from risk. Mm-hmm. So a safety risk coordinator is an embedded member of a department who has subject matter expertise on how the work is performed. Mm-hmm. The safety risk coordinators are the folks that day in and day out perform the work according to the processes and procedures that Metro has in place to control risk. Those individuals are given specific training on how to deploy and utilize the tools for recording those risks and managing those risks. They're really in the driver's seat, working hand in glove with the safety department, who bring the scientific-based approach towards the analysis and classification of those risks. We've found that that's really what's going to supercharge our implementation. So there's no special requirement other than knowing how the job is done and having performed the job. That will really allow us to target and focus our mitigation areas and assess the efficacy of our mitigations on an ongoing basis with the front line.
No, I completely agree. Thank you so much for
Madam
that.
Vice
for the
Chair, I'd just
details.
add
Yes.
quickly, if I could, just the idea that I think the safety risk coordinator position is one of the best examples of kind of the unique collaboration at this agency you get between operations and safety. And Teresa and I are often in front of the board together, but our staff at all levels work together on a daily basis. And the safety risk coordinators, I don't think you'd know if they work for safety and operations, and that's exactly how we want it. So much so that we actually have Teresa's team writing the tasks and some of the policies they use on a daily basis to execute what they do, but we also have Teresa's team as voting members of the selection committee when we're taking on new ones. So I think that type of coordination and all the committees, like the safety committee we talk about all the time, and the joint labor committee, that's really where you have people, to your point, Chair. It's not just getting data out to people. These are individuals who are in the field with folks who are experts in that area, who are actually talking safety up with them and getting, information from them about what they're concerned about and frankly, what we could do better, because we can always do better, even though we do well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I do think that that is critical when you have people that are actually working daily in the system and have had that subject matter expertise over the course of their career. So they can probably point it out better to us than anyone else. So I appreciate you using or coordinating that type of expertise into this new field, into this new lane. I had a secondary question with regards to, you said the cameras that we're now using are being more proactively reviewed. Can you give me some timeline on that? Are they reviewed monthly, daily, weekly, hourly?
On an hourly basis. So we are working to ensure that when anomalous incidents are occurring, that we have the fastest way to look into them for investigatory purposes, to identify if there's something that we need to send a message out to all employees. The transition towards embracing more of a video-centric culture, enabling us to really have eyes and ears on our buses, and eventually, as we proceed out on our rail cars, is starting to work on reinforcing good practices and enabling us to take appropriate, targeted, measured response to any sort of deviation. This is really getting everybody immediately eyes on and hands in terms of being able to fix things. What I've personally observed in visits out to the Integrated Command and Communication Center is really remarkable. The degree of seamless integrated coordination and response is unparalleled.
Thank you. I really appreciate that response and that clarification. I think that that is critical so that everybody knows these things are being reviewed hourly. So we are definitely using the technology to make sure that everybody's safety is forefront in every sense of the word. I did want to give you kudos for something, though. I love this idea of the gaming platform. Thank you so much for moving in that direction. I'm currently taking a course on human-centered design and better accessible living, and I think that this is critical. I like everybody to know that Metro is definitely looking at the future and moving in that direction. Can you give us just a little bit of preview of how that's going to look, or what kind of timeline we can expect, and can I try it out one day?
We would absolutely be happy to evaluate alertness via game. And of importance, the way the algorithm is designed in the gaming system, it is designed by very, very brilliant people to not allow you to game the game, if you will. Over time, most individuals start gaining skills. It's appropriately randomized so that it is unpredictable. And it's serving as an augmentation of our direct face-to-face observation of employees. We are also looking to start a pilot based upon the success of what we've seen in Metro Access in our bus organization. And I'll defer to my colleague on the status there.
Yeah, it's actually in process. There's some contractual issues that we're getting through with the Attende and her team, Madam Vice Chair, but that's the plan. And I think, it's a great example of the fact that although Metro Access is a contracted service here, Mr. Blake and his hardworking team, we really view them as part of the operation. As Teresa alluded to in the presentation, they're involved in all our safety metrics, and this is kind of a best practice we're borrowing from there to bring into mainline services. So we're really excited about it.
Thank you guys so much for your presentation. Thank you for the additional clarifications. And as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing this gaming. I know it will be an truly accessible format for everybody, those that are deaf, those that are hard of hearing. And thank you so much. That's all the questions I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you. Teresa, quickly, in bus and rail, the employee injury line has basically been the same now for a number of years. Is that frustrating to you all? I mean, is there anything we can really do there? I mean, we're in sort of the middle of the industry there. You know, is that just sort of a given that, you know, we're going to have to deal with from here on out, or is there anything we can really do?
So I think any injury
Of course.
is unacceptable.
Right.
And the areas that we're focusing on improving our injury rates are the items that are directly within Metro's sphere and span of control. So injuries that are related to environmental factors, there's no excuse for. Metro needs to proactively identify those environmental factors and repair them. We've noted in our injuries, when we break out the data and disaggregate it, that we've had frustrating inversions in the types of injuries that we've had. So injuries that are related to environmental factors have actually gone down as we've improved the state of good repair of our workspaces and the system in general. We're finding significantly fewer employees that are being injured by virtue of environmental conditions or tooling, those sorts of injuries. So we're very proud of that work. In concert with that, and sort of inversely proportionate, we've noted increases in injuries that are not 100% directly within Metro's control to prevent. These are the types of injuries that are occurring by virtue of operating in an open environment in which you're interfacing with the general public. So we've seen an increase in injuries that are related to engaging with the public, including assaults and psychological injuries as a result of those assaults. So while we've done a really great job controlling the engineered aspects that contribute to injuries, we recognize there's a lot more that we could be doing in the areas which are people-centric. We've partnered with several agencies in the region, really acknowledging and understanding that societal issues don't end at the threshold of a bus or an entrance into a station. They're pervasive and all-encompassing. We are going to continue our investments there. We've noted improvement, but that is an area where we are really continuing to invest in focus. We'll be briefing the board later this year about a lot of the work that we've done with our occupational health and wellness teams in the employee assistance program, as well as in ensuring our employees' overall wellness and health that we hope to see paying dividends in terms of reducing injuries in the future.
Right.
And Brian, I don't know if there's anything you wish to add?
Specifically, Teresa, no, I think you're spot on. Chid, I guess the one thing I would say is, you know, one of the most dangerous industries is the construction industry. And I would say that we do a whole lot more work in-house than most places do. So, you know, we constantly talk about injury prevention at the Executive Safety Committee, safety briefings with 689 and the other unions at the Joint Labor Management meeting. But we do a lot of heavy construction, and occasionally even people using best practices, they do have injuries, and Teresa's team does an excellent job with Mr. Off and his team of digging into those, looking at root causes and seeing what we can do to prevent them in the future.
Yeah. And that actually, just one quick question for either of you. Do we consider contractors in these figures, or are they separate from this?
So the contractors are not included in the
They're not
employee
included.
injury rates.
Okay, great. And I agree with the chair. I mean, you know, Teresa, really appreciate, obviously, where all this work has come over the last 3-4 years has really been tremendous, and working with the ops team and everything, this is really, really great. And hopefully the transparency and clarity of these presentations also for our funding partners, the federal delegation and others, people realize what a safe, reliable system we really are, despite the narrative we hear all the time, in the news and amongst certain individuals. So really appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Klein, then Ms. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to follow up on the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee that you both alluded to. This was a requirement that all transit agencies across the country establish, most, at least the larger ones, from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was sort of interesting because you already had a robust plan to move to a safety management systems SMS approach. And I'm curious how this has been integrated into that approach and whether the committee is meeting regularly, does it have a regular schedule, how that's been going. And I know that it was, one of the requirements was for that committee to produce a risk reduction plan. Has that been done? Is it still in progress? I'd like to hear more about that. Thank you.
Sure. So by way of background, Metro had an integrated committee that predated the bipartisan infrastructure law that required it. So we did have to make some adjustments to the chartering of that committee in order to meet the spirit of the law. We made those adjustments prior to the required implementation date in 2022. So we have since met on a monthly basis. The committee is comprised of equal parts, Metro management team, as well as our labor representatives. All of Metro's labor organizations are represented on the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. That committee has been very influential and productive in terms of approving the agency safety plan, which includes establishing the targets for risk reduction. The recent updates to the FTA's rules that incorporated the bipartisan infrastructure law further expand risk reduction efforts. Again, we're going forward with a reconciliation of our existing processes to make sure that they meet the full spirit and intent of the revised regulations. All of our targets for safety metrics and safety performance, including operator assaults, and injuries and other safety concerns, they're all approved by the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee as a precursor to approving the agency safety plan. I would say the committee is high functioning, and definitely there's no dearth of discussion and spirit and passion for improving safety at Metro.
Thank you, Director Klein. I just add, I've probably been on site at about 50 properties, and I've seen a lot of joint labor safety committees. I've been here almost 2 years now. I've never seen a better one, and I really credit Teresa and her team for that. I also credit the 689 and the other unions for that. As Teresa said, there's no lack of lively discussion at these committee meetings, but we have a really good amount of attendance from the right management staff to really dig in on issues and vet them out, and that's the proper place to do it.
Great, that is good to hear. It sounds like Metro's kind of was ahead of the game with having already some structures in place that now kind of making sure fit into what the rest of the country has been directed to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. Could you speak to how you all think about quantifying the direct or indirect benefits of the interventions to increase safety? And relatedly, so these questions may be flipped, but however you want to answer, is just explain the philosophy around how much the tolerance, right? Because in the same way, people driving, right? You can do 55 miles an hour or you can have no speed limit. So obviously, if one spends more money, you can drive some of the numbers to zero. But obviously there's trade-offs. So could you just articulate the philosophy about how you all think about this, quantifying the cost to the agency versus the benefits? Thanks.
Absolutely. So to address the first aspect of your question around the crisis intervention specialists, I think the indirect benefits are nearly immeasurable. They're huge. With the current societal pressures and challenges that we face, focusing only on law enforcement will not solve our problems. We really need to take a compassionate approach and connect individuals that are in need with services that will enable them to address and improve their conditions. Individuals that are unhoused, in need of housing, individuals that are struggling with addiction, merely arresting or escorting them from the property is only going to serve as a temporary solve. It will not solve the overall problem. When we've looked at successful international efforts, we realize that the crisis intervention specialist role and function can connect those individuals in need with the services that will create sustainable long-term change. And we've had significant improvements in terms of repeat concerns and issues and areas where the crisis intervention specialists have been able to connect individuals with appropriate services. So I definitely think it's going to be difficult to quantify in the short term. I think over time, longitudinally, we'll note marked improvement in reduction of incidents on our system. Also, I think this mirrors some of the successes that we've seen with our opioid efforts, recognizing the opioid epidemic that the United States is currently experiencing. Our crisis intervention specialists, as well as our police force, have deployed a program to administer Narcan to individuals that are experiencing an overdose. And we've noted that we've had the ability to not only save a life, but also through the crisis intervention specialists, get those individuals in contact with the appropriate services that they need. And I think that's paying measurable dividends in terms of the psychological impact of being exposed to that to our workforce. It's very easy for us to compartmentalize Metro's workforce as not really being a part of or affected by general societal trends. And I think that's really a challenge that we need to realize. Our workforce live within the communities we serve, and they are exposed to the trials and tribulations of those communities. So enabling our employees to feel like Metro is a part of the community and is working together with the community on solutions has improved any sort of contributory or repeated trauma that our employees are experiencing. We've invested pretty heavily in the employee assistance program to ensure that our employees have an outlet, that they know that skilled professionals are available to assist them in a confidential manner with any challenges that they may face or be exposed to in the general work environment. And Brian, I'll defer to you if you want to add more.
No, you covered it, Teresa. Director, I would just say that I really give Chief Inzalo and his team, Sean DeLewis especially, a lot of credit with regards to what they've done with the crisis intervention specialists. That's something Mr. Clark had down in Austin at the agency he ran before he came here, and Chief really grabbed onto that when Mr. Clark came here. They just do a fantastic job. I would say it's really a rich data set they keep with regards to the amount of people they, undertake interventions with and the services they provide to them. And they are really popular in the industry right now because the person in charge of security for APTA is our former police chief, and she puts these folks in touch with the industry. And we've had people visit, provide information, very well received at APTA presentation. So this is really something that, to me, leads the industry.
Super interesting. And I realized I also did not articulate my question clearly enough, because originally I was asking more big picture about driving to zero some of the safety incidents. So this is one of the categories, obviously, but I am curious again if there's just a guiding philosophy about the level of activities and interventions to get to zero. And for example, I don't know, different categories of rail or bus, or how do you think about it?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's critically important to the success of our SMS is that it's real and it's measurable, and it never stops being aspirational. So it would be very simple for any transit agency to publish a statistic or a goal that's zero. It would be very difficult for an agency to achieve that goal. What we've done through our data analytics is looked at our ongoing performance, benchmarked it with our peers, and are really focusing on parsing out the causal and contributory factors that lead to that performance and investing in addressing each one of those. We think it's important for our workforce to understand the drive towards continuous improvement with realistic targets. Again, acknowledging that any incident, any injury is on its face not acceptable, and we need to investigate it and we need to work to prevent it. But we want to have metrics that are achievable with investment so that we can continue to measure our performance against process. One of the things that we've invested very strongly in the implementation of our SMS is really grounding it in data. And that has been, I think, a remarkable paradigm shift for both our workforce and some of the stakeholders around us to ensure that we're marching towards a measurable and achievable goal. And then once achieved, we're not going to backtrack. We're not going to backslide. We're going to continue to embrace the spirit of ongoing and continuous improvement.
I'd just add, Director, that something we're very interested in really kind of maximizing the benefit of is the rules compliance program we have. Metro's had one really focused on bus and rail for a long time, but I think Teresa and I and the other leadership team in both safety and operations is really focused on kind of codifying that better than it is now and really using leading indicators rather than lagging indicators with regards to what we react to. So I think that'll probably be a future presentation that we have at Safety and Ops in the next couple of months. We're still figuring out how to really best utilize that, but it's something we're really focused on. And I do think some of the changes we've had in alignment, like creating a transportation area and Teresa changing some of her training areas around to align with that, will really pay dividends. And I think it needs to be a hand-in-glove approach where it all fits together, because if you see rules that are potentially being violated, you need to change your training, you need to change your policies and procedures, and that's what we're really trying to get out to staff and make sure they're ahead of.
I just want to add a comment, I think, because we're probably just about ready to go to the next presentation. That next presentation, I think, hits a little bit to your question as well, which is we're clearly in an environment we can't isolate risk, and there's a million variables going on. Yesterday, we probably moved better part of 900,000 people. We have 13,000 employees. We have high heat and humidity today. We could have heavy rain. We got, Teresa mentioned societal facts. So everything is kind of looked at through this risk paradigm and kind of a cost benefit. So as we go, a good example would be back to our long conversations around automatic train operation. Clearly, this management team could have just said, well, we're not going to do anything with automatic train operation because it wasn't moving forward. We don't believe that's the right thing to do. The system was designed to run that way. It's clearly safer to run that way. We brought an independent panel, including international experts, to come in. They said, why aren't you running that way? That is a safer way to run. And to the efficiency, we believe it could result in potentially up to like $15 million of savings while getting the safety benefits. So we decided to use our, quite frankly, we have a limited amount of resources here on both the management and technical team to say that is worth the benefit, even though there is cost of distraction of our time on other things. I think a deeper part is we spend a very significant amount of time on rail safety. One, we have an oversight agency that we do not have on the bus side because our industry is not set up that way. The chair alluded to this. We have people in the region, we live in the fishbowl, that say random things about metro safety that I would think the facts prove are not necessarily true, but it gets a lot of attention. And things that Teresa and Brian and I talk a lot about is how do we not chase every rabbit on this part of the organization when we carry 425,000 people today on bus who also have significant safety and actually even a larger frontline workforce. And so trying to balance all that is what we're trying to do every day. So really the real question is, that is all we do every day, is try to constantly balance how do we use the limited resources to make the system work as safe and reliable as possible, because we know if that works well, ridership and customer satisfaction clearly go follow that.
Thanks, Randy. Let's move to the next topic.
Thank you, sir. Today we're going to give an update on our rail safety program. I'm joined by Mr. Dwyer, Chief Operating Officer. Our update aligns with the service excellence pillar. That'll be our focus today, really talking about the specific programs that we have in place relative to rail safety. Mr. Dwyer will review Metro's actions based upon the rail car maintenance audit that we've recently received. Mr. Dwyer and I will give a brief update on our train operator certification program, and I will conclude the presentation giving an update on our rail automation program. Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Teresa. With regards to the recent rail maintenance audit, we're grateful for the continued partnership with WMSC, and Metro appreciates the feedback that assists us with our goals for continuous improvement. The railcar maintenance audit was conducted as part of a regular 2-year audit cycle. WMSC started the audit in September 2023 and received a draft on April 1st, 2024. Per usual process, we returned our comments within the 30-day window required. The final audit report was published on May 21st. The final audit report included 7 findings and 3 recommendations related to our maintenance procedures, policies, and instructions. Metro was not provided advance notice of the audit's release, nor were we given information regarding consideration of why comments provided were not incorporated into the final audit report. Metro does not agree that all elements of all findings or recommendations are accurate. I'll provide several examples. Finding 1 states that there was improper management of deferring cars. However, the report later concludes that Metro was fully compliant with its procedures for deferrals at the time of the audit. Metro also expressed concerns with broad language and lack of specific metrics for the closure of required corrective actions. For example, recommendation 3 states Metro Rail should update its railcar maintenance staffing assessment. The recommendation, we believe, is overly broad, non-quantifiable, and not reflective of the dynamic management of shops and operations required on a day-to-day basis. In addition, it was shared that this recommendation was not made based on any type of manpower analysis, but by the WMSC asking Metro staff if they believe the shops could use additional staff. It's important to note that Metro is in the process of changing the wheel inspection interval to 60 days on newly pressed wheel sets, and we've retired the 2000 series trains, as we've discussed at past board meetings, our oldest vehicle that required far more significant corrective maintenance activities than the rest of the fleet. These adjustments should lower the demand on railcar maintenance staff for certain activities. Such anecdotal discussion between the WMSC and our staff being audited also illustrates one of our ongoing auditing practice concerns, and that is that findings and recommendations are based on interviews with multiple personnel that don't have documented interview notes. Many of the findings will be addressed with actions already underway by Metro or revisions to existing policies and procedures. For example, a procedure is already established that addresses the identification, handling, and calibration of equipment, is noted in finding 7. Metro will be revising the SOP to incorporate equipment reviews at regular periods. In addition, recommendation 1 states Metro Rail should develop a process that identifies expired car parts for those with a shelf life. Metro has existing procedures on shelf life of fluids and will be expanding this procedure to include railcar parts. In the area of electrostatic discharge protection, as identified in finding 6, Metro developed a maintenance and service instruction which employs industry best practices. It's been approved and implemented. I actually visited Greenbelt shops yesterday just to see the new process in action. Other findings and recommendations, such as training records and the identification, prioritization, and mitigation of hazards, were preemptively identified and addressed by Metro at the time of this audit. Recognizing that many of these items are already actively being addressed, Metro commits to developing the required corrective action plans required by this audit through our standing WMSC process. You can go to the next one, please. An update on an item we've talked about a good bit, train operator certification. As you all know, we received an order on February 28th from the WMSC on this topic, and we completed as an agency a review of over 1,000 certification records. We've been working to correct paperwork discrepancies on over 400 records. It's important to note that despite paperwork issues identified, all personnel requiring an operator certification remain safe to operate. Rail transportation increased personnel and train availability to complete partial certifications. Partial recertifications have all been completed for staff who are available. For those who are currently out for a variety of reasons, sick, et cetera, they will be certified when they come back to work. Metro's deadline is July 31st, 2024 to complete the partial recertifications, and I would like to thank the WMSC for extending the deadline associated with addressing partial certifications. As far as quality control, we work to establish a comprehensive quality control process, including dedicating a team under the Senior Directive of Rule Compliance to perform the review. Operations and Safety and Readiness work together to ensure all training and record keeping met very rigorous standards. The quality control team is reviewing paperwork for all partial recertifications, as well as any ongoing certifications until the program transitions to safety and readiness. This includes the about 70 individuals who require either initial certification, or recertification as part of their 2-year cycle in June 2024. The quality control review occurs at 2 points: right after the exam is completed and when the record is uploaded. The team looks for missing information as well as verifying the completeness of all records. With regards to program transition, ready to go. Safety and readiness is on track, and that will occur on June 30th, 2024. The new program will incorporate many process improvements, and safety and readiness has revamped the program manual to align with industry best standards. They will continue to implement a robust quality control process and have worked with digital modernization to develop electronic forms to minimize errors. As the program transitions, Safety and Readiness has met with the WMSC and Local 689 to discuss how the program will be changing. Operations and Safety and Readiness are working closely to ensure a smooth transition. Teresa?
Thank you, Brian. Just to add a little more detail on the program transition, as my colleague stated, effective June the 30th, the program will transition to the Safety and Readiness team. We are currently training our certifiers. We are trialing and piloting the digital forms. The revisions to the process that incorporate use of digital tools will prevent many, if not all, of the paperwork errors that were experienced in the prior process. We've also conducted a very extensive benchmarking activities, both within transit, commuter and heavy rail, and other high-risk industries such as aviation to align our process for certification and evaluation with industry best practice. As my colleague noted, we've had an extensive stakeholder engagement process through every step of the realignment and program transition. We've engaged affected parties, including the management of our frontline employees, groups of frontline employees and focus groups, labor organizations, and the WMSC. Over the remainder of the month of June, as we're piloting and trialing the new process, we'll continue to hold focus groups to gain not only quantitative data relative to the ease with which individuals are completing the new forms and executing the new process, but also qualitative data that will inform the continued improvement. After the program goes live on July the 1st, we're going to have a 30 and 90-day review where we will engage with stakeholders, take a look at how the program's been performing relative to conformance with process, and make any ongoing tweaks. I look forward to providing the board an update at the conclusion of the 90-day review process, and in which we'll discuss the certification updates. Transitioning to an update on Metro's automation programs in rail. I'm happy to report that the performance of Metro's automatic door operations has been nothing short of stellar. Automatic door operations began on the Red Line in December of 2023. To date, we've had no safety critical errors such as a wrong side door opening or doors opening off the platforms that would present a hazardous condition to our customers. We've had over 1.2 million door openings without any sort of safety critical error. Additionally, the reliability metrics that Metro has set for automated door operation performance have all been met or exceeded since December of 2023. We've noted improvements in our schedule adherence or on-time performance experienced since the implementation of auto doors on the red line. For additional detail and clarification purposes, the way in which the auto doors system operates, as a reminder, when a train enters the station and berths at the proper point, the doors will automatically open, but the train operator must manually close the doors before proceeding out of the station. That's a critical safety process that we wanted to remain manual close. So our operators are still responsible for assuring that it is safe to close the doors and depart the station. That will not happen automatically. We have been performing additional training and certification across the system. We have trained 95% of our workforce in automatic door operations. It's nearly complete on all metro lines. The safety team is performing its final safety certification reviews and checks over the course of this week to make sure that there are no gaps or concerns with our preparedness, and we anticipate sending our final safety certification review to the WMSC next week. We believe we'll be ready for system-wide launch of auto doors post July 4th. And we will, of course, actively monitor the performance of the auto doors system once it launches, and we anticipate similar positive gains in performance that we've experienced on the red line. Transitioning to an update on our automatic train operations programs, we've developed training and exercises to familiarize our employees with automatic train operations. We conducted a pilot of that training for rail operators and rail traffic controllers, and then worked to enable a tabletop scenario demonstration, and have worked extensively with employees in our simulators so that they're getting used to, in a simulated environment, conduct of trains in automatic mode. We did invite and enjoyed the company of the WMSC during the pilot and the training scenario tabletop exercises, and we've received feedback from the WMSC that we are addressing. Additionally, our leadership team attended an overnight training scenario demonstration on the red line in May. You can see Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Clark and myself pictured in the upper left at that demonstration. Over the course of the evening, we had several trains operating in ATO, trains that ran end-to-end on the red line, as well as simulating any sort of system issues that may be experienced in ATO to assure that our employees, both rail traffic controllers and train operators, were following all of the required protocols to enter and exit automatic mode, as well as to respond to any type of anomalous activity. I'm pleased to say that we had really fabulous results in the overnight service demonstration. We've recorded lessons learned and conducted a debrief, and over the course of the summer, we'll be taking those lessons learned to further enhance our training and certification activities. We're going to continue coordinating with stakeholders to revise and tweak our training based on feedback from employees, from labor organizations, as well as from the WMSC. We anticipate sending an interim safety certification package to the WMSC at the end of the month of June that will support permission to train and certify our employees over the course of the summer. And in terms of next steps, after we complete that training and certification effort over the course of the summer, we anticipate performing a demonstration of operational readiness in early fall that'll enable the final milestone to close our safety certification proposal that we'll send to the WMSC in September. That'll enable us to appropriately plan in terms of any revised scheduling or staffing augmentation that's needed. We anticipate being prepared both technically and operationally to launch Red Line service in ATO in December of 2024. So we've definitely made ongoing progress and really appreciate the iterative approach and feedback that our staff and stakeholders have been giving us as we continue to progress forward in enhancing safety in automatic train operations. So with that, our presentation is concluded, and Mr. Dwyer and I are happy to answer any of the board's questions.
So Teresa and Brian, thank you very much for these very, very informative updates. Complexity is an understatement in what you've laid out today, and we appreciate the hard work that goes behind it. I'm going to hone in on one item just with some comments and a recommendation, and find out if our committee members have any issues, and then the other board members. So I'm going to hone in on the rail car maintenance audit and say that, one, really appreciate the visibility that you're providing with regard to the audit practice concerns. And all I really want to do is say this: we recognize that we're working against a narrative that was created over time, and we have to dig out of that hole. And we have done so with our performance. And all I want to say is, let's continue to operate with the highest standards of integrity and transparency in the process, regardless of the frustration. And big kudos to you for working through the challenges, knowing that every day, every member of this team comes to work to try to get it right. And every now and then, something might not go well. We recover, we respond with integrity and with transparency. That's the key to success, and we deliver. And our performance is proving that. So thank you for moving in that direction, and we'll continue to do that. Any committee members? Any comments? Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dwyer, something you said on your slide 42 about comments, you made extensive comments back on the audit and some of the things that were said in the other report. So I just want to be clear, so there's no requirement of the Safety Commission to put WMATA comments in the audit. From my professional experience, I've been in private industry, nonprofit world. Anytime there's an audit, if there are comments coming back from an organization or a group, they are always included in an audit. I mean, I've never seen a case where it wasn't. And even when I was on city council, we had audits of all kinds of things, and city comments or other groups' comments were always included in those audits. So I find it a little odd. So there's no requirement for them to do that?
Yeah, Chair, I'll let Teresa speak to the program standard requirement. I would tell you from my experience here, there is not. There were over 31 comments that we provided back to the WMSC that were largely unincorporated, and there is no portion of the process that allows for Metro's response to what we're being kind of audited on. So it's very difficult, and I greatly appreciate the endorsement of the board, and we'll make sure that we get back to staff with regards to just continuing to do a bang-up job. But I would say, Chair, in my experience, having been audited as an agency employee for many years and serving as an auditor for a trade organization for about 10 years, this is certainly not the norm, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the comments that Teresa and her team have produced. They're very detailed and very informative. So I would think that they would want to include those to give people the overall picture, but interesting. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Comment from any of the board members? Okay, again, thank you for the hard work that's being done. This was an excellent presentation, very enlightening, and continue to plow through and deliver with the same level of excellence that you always have. Appreciate it.
Thank you much.
Yes. So thank you again, and with no further business to come before the committee, we will stand adjourned, and I turn the floor over to Chair Smedberg, who has a request for the board to meet in executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. In accordance with the bylaws, I, Paul Smedberg, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McAndrew. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much for joining us today.